Hello, friends. Thank you for tuning into the Odd Thoughts podcast. My name is Gunther, and I am your host, and welcome to episode 7. If you're someone who likes to take the general deep dive into the everyday odd thought, I appreciate you stopping by. And if you're someone who just discovered my podcast, thank you for tuning in. I'm hoping to do a little bit of entertaining, a little bit of a semi-informative content. Just wanted to do something, that at least I enjoy, and hopefully other people enjoy as well. So today's episode, I'm kind of got a good idea. I always say that I think before my podcast, but I'm someone that I'm trying to flow as much as possible, and I'm trying to keep things fresh with my podcast, and trying to keep my ideas pretty fresh. So today I kind of wanted to talk about the fear of missing out, or being like kind of the feeling of being left out, kind of the similarities, the differences between the two, and kind of the general things that kind of go along with it. Is it the situation that you're maybe missing out on? Is it the people who are involved? Or are you someone that makes yourself available to those situations? Or are you someone that kind of, maybe shuts out situations, and you don't always pull through with plans? So we'll get into a little bit of a dive into that. But before that, I just want to say thank you for anybody that's been listening to my podcast. And like I said, I'm trying my best to get it out there. I'm doing everything I can, and I'm trying to find a more consistent schedule. And so as as the ball keeps rolling, I just know that more people will hopefully listen and discover my podcast. And so, like I said, I'm having fun. I feel like I say that a lot, but I truly am having fun with my episodes, and it's helping me a lot. Like I said, getting the confidence, and also, trying to keep myself accountable for something that's kind of outside, like, this little bubble that I have on certain things. And it's something that I'm really getting used to. At least I'm trying to, also like trying to be more consistent in each episode. Like with the intros, I'm trying to be more consistent in what I say, and then with the outros, the same thing. I'm trying to be more consistent with the outros a little bit. Um, but I'm evolving. I don't think I'm gonna expect to get it perfect after 6 episodes. So, going on to episode 7 and hopefully onwards, I'm only gonna ever learn, and I have learned from the last few episodes, and I picked up on a couple things, and I know I've done some, things correct in certain episodes, or feel like at least not maybe necessarily correct, but at least I feel like I feel pretty good about that I did, and I just gotta remember to do those things, through the episodes. But I'm just gonna keep rolling, just keep hanging out and keep showing up in front of the microphone and producing something, and I am also working on trying to figure out what I want to do outside of podcasting. I kind of had a kind of like an idea that I kind of want to start, creating articles or creating kind of pieces like of that kind of like nature along with my podcasting. Some people are not necessarily, they don't want to listen, maybe they're more of readers, and I kind of like the idea of being able to have both. And I know that if I get into with the writing thing, that's going to help me, I think, with my language and my expression of my words. And so if I get into the habit of writing these articles and stuff like that, I think like it maybe will also help me with the topics in the podcast, and maybe help me figure things out a little bit more, and ask the right questions, and learn a little bit more and learn a little bit deeper. And so I'm kind of working on that. That's what I'm working on. And also just trying to like see what kind of platforms, social media platforms I can reach out on, and what I'm even interested in more so. I with the article thing, medium.com is like a website that I've kind of discovered, and I kind of like that. It's a little more personable, and it's just something more so, I think, for like, I don't know how, like, it's not necessarily for the reasons of me being able to reach out to like a mass population of people, but like more so for the people that like come in, know me as a fan more so. I don't want to say like fan because that's weird to say, but it's like one of those things where like it's just another thing to see me on. And then I was also like, like I'm already on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and obviously I got my YouTube channel, but I'm also trying to figure out where else I want to put the podcast as well. Like, I know that maybe YouTube isn't everybody's like bag. It's not everybody's like preferred platform to listen to things, listen to podcasts especially. It doesn't feel like also it's like the major platform for podcasting. So Spotify, I'm trying to maybe look into that a little bit. As well as like there's something called Letterboxd. If you know what that is, it's like a place where you can find movies, and you can find review of movies, and people can leave their own reviews, and like their watch list, like and stuff like that. So And I'm a movie fan, and I'm trying my best to like. I want to kind of delve into like, I'm a movie fan when it comes to like such a base level of like what movies are. Like, I don't think I maybe delve too deeply into like this, like the man, indie films like that. I think specifically that. Like, I'm not. I like the blockbuster. I like the bigger names. Like, I do like that stuff because there's a certain experience with that. But those aren't necessarily always the best movies. And so like, and there's things that just never come across, like especially also with like foreign films, like there's just things that just don't come across like my, vision there, my like, field of vision. So like I'd like to a little invest in that. Also, review films I've also deeply enjoy. And I'm also like, looking at like Pinterest and thinking about sharing artwork on Pinterest and nothing with like I just want to like show my progress and still trying to find things in my life that generally kind of I'm holding myself accountable for, showing up for myself in a lot of ways. Something I've talked about. Like I just want to be able to continually do things to better my position in life and better my confidence and better my mental health and just like give myself confidence to want to do things more in life. It's this one. I want to turn this into something that I can make money with and turn it into my job, turn it into my career or whatever. But also, I want to be able to like, you know, I just don't want to be like I won't want to be caught in like a content creator influencer like range. You know what I'm saying? It's weird. And I'm still just trying to discover even like what I can do outside of podcasting that it helps me avoid that. I don't want to just do like, go up on, Instagrams and just do reels of my life or like go on, I could do that every once in a while or like Facebook and stuff like that. I could do that every once in a while, but I'd rather create content that like at least that intellectually engages me, creatively engages me and try to stay consistent with that. Yeah. So, so you get up on the podcast. That's I think one thing that I'm staying trying to stay consistent with. So, I'll stop with the rambling. I'm trying to get more into the, at the beginning of every episode, maybe try to be a little human and not necessarily always, deep dive into like the topic right off the bat. I think sometimes, I feel a little rushed in my episodes. Like, I feel like I'm rushing myself. I get nervous right before I turn on the microphone. So, I feel like I'm rushing through things and like I'm trying to get right into it. And I want to be like, I want to make sure that people get the content that they want out of it. But if it's, the semi little, me talking to myself in the beginning and just talking and kind of gives me a little bit of confidence to get into my topics. And I do it even before I start recording. I like plug the mic in, put my headphones on and I just talk to myself for a little bit. It just get used to the flow of talking. But then, like I take my headphones off when I actually record, which I don't know if that hurts me or helps me. I'm also trying to adjust the microphone position a lot. So okay, quit the rambling. All right, so today this is episode 7, and like I said, today's topic I kind of had a good idea of talking about the fear of missing out or the feeling of being left out, and kind of the in betweens and the differences and the similarities of both. And I think that they are kind of a little bit different in a little bit of a way. Is it the feeling of being left out? Is it that I think maybe leads with more of a consistent thing of like you're just never being included in general, and then maybe a fear of missing out is that you have an idea in your head of like there's things happening around you and you're just not being included in it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's a little bit of a weird like in between justification of it, you know what I'm saying? And I think a big thing that leads between those feelings, that feeling of being left out or that fear of missing out, I think it really does contribute to the thought, the inception of the thought between the two. And are you someone that like I struggle, especially with like I always feel like I want to be included in things, but some things are just not necessarily like my style, or some things are necessarily like things I want to do. And so, is it like a fear of missing out? Like like something happening is cool, or is it like I just like hate feeling like I'm left out or I'm never being included? But it's you got to make yourself available is what I've kind of learned with that a little bit is you got to kind of let people know. And I'm not a very extroverted person, so that's a hard thing for me, and I with as an introvert, I also play with that double-edged sword of like not only struggling to make myself available but also then like showing up on plans that's kind of a big thing is like sometimes I've canceled on plans or like I feel like I was in the mood earlier in the day and then I'm not, and I can't help that always. And I'm never gonna sit there and I'm never gonna try to like force myself into that situation to like go out there and like be in an uncomfortable situation, even though being uncomfortable really isn't the worst thing. It helps me in a lot of ways. And I talk about wanting to be an extrovert so bad. So I don't mind forcing myself into situations, but am I doing it just because I fear like I have a fear of missing out on something, or is it because I'm consistently feeling of being left out? And why is and that's a big question is why. You can't always blame it on like the people or something like that. Even though sometimes I have built it up in my own head where like I've like it's like, oh, they just don't like me very much, or like, oh, they just like, it's like, oh, they know I'm gonna ruin the situation, or like you try to talk yourself out saying that like, oh, I maybe won't even enjoy it or whatever, or like like it's not something a secret I need to know. I kind of always I think I'm using the example more so in like when it goes to like doing things like running errands or like hanging out with friends, but it even means like in like people's like business. And that's a big thing is like especially on like the levels of like super personal to not is like sometimes it's just not you're not included. Some things are just too like it's personal to people. And there's a group and there may be a few people that have something very personal and you're sitting there and you're like, well, I feel like, they're keeping something from me. And it's like, well, yeah, they are. It's like there's a reason they're keeping something from you. It doesn't include you, and that's something that I think I have struggled with before. Just feeling like, like I was never a really popular kid. It's always funny to kind of think of like, but I was never really a popular kid. So, but my little sister was super popular. And so she always had friends around, and she always had people that like were coming over and wanted to sleep over and hang out with her and invite them over to her house. And at times I felt left out. But but am I gonna go hang out with like like little girls? Like she's only a couple years younger than me, but like they're not gonna do any of the things that I wanted to do. They're not gonna play video games, and we're not gonna watch like horror movies, and we're not gonna do that kind of stuff. They're gonna do their thing. And so that's something I learned over the years is like also just like you come to I had to come to the fact that like or just accept the fact that I am an introvert, and sometimes like being left out or fearing that being left out or feeling like I'm being left out or missing out on something, it just comes with the territory a little bit. And also like I said, like it's the making yourself available too. That's something that I don't think a lot of people think. And you may think that you're making yourself available by like, just like texting your friends, and that's I think a step forward anyways. Just constantly reaching out. And sometimes you even have to maybe like you have to make the plan, which is just a tough thing, I'm not very good at making plans. Like if you look at me, if we're all hanging out, if I'm hanging out with a couple friends, like, and you're looking at me to make the plans, I'm like, I'm stressed. You know what I'm saying? So like, so if you're someone that like, it's like I said, it's a double-edged sword of like, are you making yourself available, and even if you are, like, are you even showing up in plans? Are you someone that's like so forward with like, you're like, oh yeah, just hit me up whenever you want, but then when they hit you up, are you like available? Or if they're trying to tell you something and include in something, are you receptive to it? That's another thing. Yeah, like I said, and I keep using the example like of like I'm trying not to too much point towards the example of like being left out of like a a hangout sesh or like something like that. I'm trying to like use it because like I said, sometimes there's just things like information that you don't need to know, and like but sometimes like you could know and maybe it would benefit you, but you just like you never showed the ability to handle that or anything like that. And that's a question between personal struggle or like is it actually like you acting out, because it could be all in your head, and that's something that I know that I sometimes do struggle with is am I really is it building up in my head, but then I also struggle with the thought of like, well, am I just really not like like am I not that great to be around, am I not like reliable with information, and which I think does again I was the double-edged sword. I don't know where this double-edged sword is, but I keep running into it, god dang it. But it's kind of a I sometimes feel delusional when I'm counting myself out before I'm even like putting myself in before I can even get like so and so rejected or so and so being left out. You know what I'm saying? I'm already like counting myself out. So I try my best to like think like to take things face value. And so when I can equate a lot of it to that personal struggle in my head, that personal like, hatred that I have towards myself, or like, I'm an introvert and I know that like I don't want to always be out there, and I don't like being around a lot of people all the time. And but then maybe are times when I'm not great in certain situations that I do like act a certain way in situations. Like, like I'm not very good in big crowds. Like I struggle a lot. I get like really nervous, and I get a little claustrophobic when I'm like in close quarters with people. And so like I don't go to concerts because like I don't want to like suffocate. You know what I'm saying? Which is like dumb to think because like then I'm missing out on, I'm like, literally excluding myself so that when people around me go to concerts, like they just don't think of me because I've never like made myself like available for that. And also like I've taught, I've said things like that, like that I get claustrophobic around like concerts, around a lot of people and stuff like that. Not specific because I've never been to concerts. I've been to like shows at like bars and like small clubs and whatever, but never been to like full on concerts, you know. But that there's that fine line of like struggling between like maybe you are actually just someone that nobody thinks like just based on the way you act, and it's not always like a bad thing necessarily. I don't think it should be thought of always like a bad thing. Like sometimes it's just not your style. If you're a pretty chill, laid back person, you're probably not getting invited to raves. You know what I'm saying? If you're someone that like historically, you just like let secrets slip. You're not necessarily a bad person, but you let secrets slip. Probably a reason someone's not telling you something. So you also that's in between. That's you got to realize that some things just don't include you, and sometimes like it's you're if you're making yourself available or not, and also there always is a. I think sometimes I always think of like, am I missing out on an opportunity? That's a good question of like, is you missing out on the situation or is it like with the people in the situation? Because a lot of times like I can, it can be like interchangeable people. Like I want to do things with like different types of people all the time. Like, but it's about like sometimes I get hung up more so on like, oh, I missed a chance to go do this. I missed a chance to like know about this, like and actually learn about this or like hear about this or like, oh, I could have been helpful if I reached out and so things like that. And it's never I never hold up too much on the people anymore. That I think was like maybe when I was a little younger. I kind of that with the fear of missing out and that feeling of being left out and stuff like that. I think that came with like, people that I thought were my friends or something like that. And like, that acceptance of wanting people around me and wanting friends around me and like my family and stuff like that, saying like I said, like my little sister had a bunch of friends and, she was constantly doing things. And so like I kind of maybe held it towards people a little bit, saying like, "Oh, they wouldn't want to be around me." I get it, like if I get it, like da 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 da, which is all it's all sort of delusional because I know in my heart that I have things that like people fuck with me. Sorry, sorry for my language. I'm trying my best. But people like I know that people like me, so that's not always true. But then as I became a little older, I kind of start thinking like, well, maybe it was really like a lot of times it was like the opportunities. It felt like there was these cool things that were going on, but I couldn't. I just wasn't doing that. And then just realizing that you probably could do like, a lot of those stuff on your own. Like you don't need people to do it. Like I always like want to go to Six Flags. Like right now, like I'm so like Six Flags when it comes around. Like I always want to go and stuff like that. It's really hot. So like, but like when it gets a little cooler, like Six Flags, and then when the state fair comes up, and I talk about it every year, and I just every year when it passes by, like I kind of get that like I just like I didn't go and that sucks. And I feel like, like because like I get this like I always sometimes get that like dreaded thought in my head of like things are like, oh, they're gonna close next year and I missed it. It was the last year. But it's like, no, they're not. They're gonna be there, probably, most likely. So that's I get a little bit doomsy with my thoughts sometimes even. And that's will it I try to that's the thing that I've kind of gotten better with is when I have that feeling and I kind of have that fear kind of creeping up on me, I'm trying to get better at asking like, you know, will it happen again type thing. Am I missing out on like a situation that's never going to happen again? Or am I like am I missing out on things that will 100% pop up again and most likely with the same people and like you're never going to be out of the loop type thing? And that's a question like I said I'm trying to formulate more in my head as I get a little older. And most of the times like when I have freaked out about that kind of stuff or I've had those kind of intense feelings of feeling left out or the fear of missing out, I think a lot of times like I realize that it's like okay, well, we can go do this again. Like things will happen again or like something similar or like because I wasn't told this thing, it's not the end of the world. There will be a time when someone could tell me something and they could trust me with something and stuff like that. And it's a struggle. It really is. But um, Because yeah, that's like I said, I get a little dready with the thought of like, well, what if it doesn't pop up again? Like, what if it never happens again? And then like, what am I gonna like, 20 years down the road think about that one time that I was like excluded? Probably not. Probably truly not. Because now as like, even though I talk about like, the times when I was younger, feeling like those feelings of being left out when I was younger, like moments I can maybe think of, like I don't really truly hold on to those. I'm gonna have more moments that I can let myself down on. That's not a good sentiment to say. I'm sorry. But yeah, I'm trying. When things actually pop up, when it comes to those situations where like I probably shouldn't miss out, I do get a little bit scared of like, will I be able to pull the trigger type, the theoretical trigger or whatever? Because like there are going to be opportunities in my life that I know that like I might not get too many of those, right? I may not, and that scares me. Especially with like one thing I think about like with travel, like I want to be able to make a lot of money in one day, and like one of the big things I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give it back to my family, like all these very very important people to me. But like I just want to travel, baby. That's all I want to do. I just want to make money and like go drive around the USA and then go travel the world. And so as I get a little older, I kind of keep thinking that I'm gonna miss out like on these situations that like they won't pop up. Like I'm only gonna get one chance to go here, or like one chance to go here. And yes or no, I don't know. Like, what I'm saying? Or like in the dating scene, like the times that I've got like, the women that I've been around and stuff like that, it's like, or the women I've met and stuff like that, it's like it's one of those things where it's like am I meeting like the girl? Am I meeting like the woman that's gonna be like the person for the rest of my life? Or is it just like that one feeling, that quick little lustful whatever type thing? Is it just a girl paying attention to me type thing? And am I gonna if and then if I let them walk away and I tell myself like, oh, another one will come, and then I feel like douchey or I feel like a piece of shit because I just like let a good girl walk away. I want kids one day, so as I get a little older, I keep thinking that I'm gonna miss out on that. I don't want to be like I don't want to wait till I'm 40. I don't want to wait till my mid 30s. My dad was like 33 when I was born. And I think that's not. I don't want to say late because I think that's perfect. And in the timing of his life and my mom's life too. My mom's 9 years younger than him. But in the timing of their lives, it was perfect. You know what I'm saying? Or at least it was like a moment that actually made sense. So there's a balance between is something going to happen again? Are you going to get another chance to be involved in some way, or is it never going to happen again? And don't dwell on the situation too much. Try not to dwell on that. And yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like there's so little things that like if you're left out of something or you kind of have that fear of missing out, just really try to distinguish that like will it happen again or will it not? And obviously, I think everybody's gonna have a little bit of a freak out like when you miss out on like when on seemingly like once in a lifetime opportunities. Nobody wants to miss out. I really truly believe, right? So I think everybody has maybe a little bit of that like fear of being left out or like the feeling of being left out. I think everybody has that a little bit. But, contradictory to that, I guess a little bit that like we all know people that are like the ones that are like, like that are making people no, but like there's the ones that like they set up all the plans or like they're the ones that like have the information to tell and they're usually always like connected. And so like we know people that like they may never feel that feeling really like because like they're the people that are usually the most involved. You know what I'm saying? You got to ask those people like do you ever like you're the ones that are usually like you're the ones that are like causing people to not like directly causing people to feel like they're left out or have that fear of missing out, but like we know people there's people in everybody's lives that are seemingly like the moving forward, always got the action, always got something going on, always got something, so they're never left out, never excluded type thing. It feels like that. Okay, sometimes I feel like that's like with my little sister. Like and she deserves it. She's, incredibly smart, beautiful, all these things, So it's one of those things where like it's okay. Those people like they keep it moving. And I think we should probably as a person that sometimes like, does have those feelings and I don't always make myself available, you gotta find the people that like that make themselves available, that open the availability for people too. That's every introvert needs an extrovert. It's the balance. Every extrovert needs an introvert. And It's kind of I could keep using my sister an example, but like when my sister was little, she was always kind of an extroverted, kind of bubbly person. And then she met her best friend Lauren in like the late middle school, like early high school when they started like really becoming best friends. And like they both had like this blend of like Katie maybe was a little more like, inner, but like she was bubbly and funny and like she loved, she was a happy person. And then like Lauren's a little more like outwards with like how she acts and stuff like that. But they needed each other for balance. And literally it's like when I think of like a friendship, I think like they're like the yin and yang of like friendship. I love those two. It's hilarious just watching them like how they function and watching them grow up and stuff like that. But you got to have those people that like make the plans and sometimes you have to be that person too. I realize that like I think maybe something that does lead to maybe like you being left out or like people maybe not even considering you for something or like something like that is like sometimes sometimes you have to make the plan yourself. Sometimes you have to. It's not just like saying like, "Hey, what's up? What are you doing?" It's like, "Hey, like I'm gonna go do this," and already have the plan set and throwing out that invitation, that open invitation. And that's it. And like I said, like I struggle a lot with like being the planner and things and trying to make the plan and stuff like that. But like, I know that sometimes I have to because it opens me up. It's gonna open especially like when you pick you kind of pick what like you want to open yourself up to and what plans you make. Then that kind of opens up people to think about those situations with you. You know what I'm saying? Like if something happens with like if you found out something cool and you start telling people or like you're like, oh, I'm gonna go like to this national park and I'm gonna go hike and like you kind of have all this stuff figured out and then like you tell people or you open people's invitation, then people might think of you in those some scenarios. Next week when someone else goes hiking, they're like, oh man, Gunther, he went hiking last week and he invited me and I think that'd be cool because that was fun. And so then that opens up like a door. So you have to try to put yourself out there and try to like and not like I said, not just be like, hey, what are you doing? Like hey, it'd be fun to do something today. Do. You kind of have to like you have to make the plan. You at least gotta throw something, in the hat or whatever, the metaphorical hat that's sitting there. Everybody sees it. Everybody knows it's there. Yeah. And yeah. And also sometimes also like doing things on your own. I think that also can be a supplement for that fear of missing out or the feeling of being left out. I think sometimes just fulfilling yourself, just doing things on your own. If people are going, usually they have, a group of your friends, they have their own little subset of they have their own little group and they do their thing. Like, don't feel excluded necessarily. Go do your own thing. And it's hard not to because like I said, there's always the questions of like, is it more in your head and you're just kind of thinking overly of yourself, or is it the making yourself like it's just not your personality? It's just not like they don't feel like you're approachable in some ways. So you got to do your own. You sometimes really do have to like make sure that you're okay. If you felt like a group of your friends went out to go see a movie, go see the movie. Go on your own and go see the movie. I know that's freaking lame, and I know that all your friends did it, but then like you're included. Then all of a sudden, even though they went and did their own thing and they had this whatever experience, you had your own experience. You know what I'm saying? And they might be like your experience might be better. Like they might have like went in and it was packed out and all that crazy stuff, and it's like they missed like the first 10 minutes of the movie or whatever. But then like you go, you were on time, like nobody was in the theater. You saw it at a good time. You kind of were just like splayed out, hanging out. Even though you missed out on being with your friends or like you missed out on being considered in that kind of group of people, like you still went in and had your own experience. So something like I try to do is trying to fill in experiences of my own and trying to feel like that, like I'm not excluded. And I question that a lot. And like I said, I am trying not to use the examples of just like I said, just going to the movies. Like I'm trying not to use examples of like being included in events and like cool things like that. It's also like I said, like information, being excluded out on information. And that's hard to like because like that's even more justifiable with like sometimes you're just not included. Like it's just not your information. With like going places like that's got some layers, but like at the end of the day, you can always just do it on your own, or like sometimes you could just like make your own experience with experiences with that. But when it comes to like information, like being like left out of being told something or like fear that like everybody has something they know and you don't know something, I think that causes a little more paranoia in a way. And but it also like you have to realize that like there are things that people keep to their heart, keep close to themselves, and they won't tell people. And you got to assume that the people that they didn't tell, it's either going to directly affect those people, or they trust those people the most to help them. Because like you may be like great in all these ways and you may like be able to do all these things, but like people sometimes have that fear of like they just may think that you may not know in this situation or something like that, or like may it's that's a complicated thing. I think that's something I also struggled with, is like feeling like that people are like keeping secrets around me. And but like, what are like, I got my secrets too, and I'm not telling these people secrets, right? So then you can I get offended by like people keeping me out of secrets. That's kind of a backwards way to think, I sometimes I think I struggle with that a little bit, especially now. Like I just feel like I'm like being left out of information sometimes, especially in like like I said, I get a little dready and doomsy with my thoughts, but like in this world today, I feel like I feel like there's like a blind, pulled over my eyes, and I'm like, well, I don't know what the hell's going on. Like, I thought I was like in this world, and I thought I kind of had things like kind of cooperating, and I thought I had things moving correctly, but you know, that's a bigger question. So the distinguishment between the two is not too much. The feeling of being left out and the fear of missing out, it's very similar. But you do have to ask those little minute questions. You really do have to ask, like, is it more the situation, or is it the people? Is it going to happen again, or is it not? Is it like that important, or is it really not? Is it even like your business? That's a struggle. But I think with everything, you can always work through things. I don't think like as you get a little older, I don't think it's always going to be that way. And if you're this, and you have to do the things, like you can't just sit there and like constantly being like, expressing that you feel left out and expressing that you fear missing out. You can't just sit there and constantly express it and not take the forward steps. And with the varying level of people, like I said, I'm an introvert, so it's hard for me to like, like reach out and ask people for information, or reach out and like want to hang out, and like also like to try to make those plans, and like, like I said, with my secrets and like things that I know, like I'm not always like, even like not even secrets necessarily, just like things I learn. Like I love learning things and going. I talk to my dad a lot. That's like the one person I can confidently like go up to, and in my sisters too. Like they just listen to me, and I really appreciate that. And also my cousin Jen. Shout out to my cousin Jen. She every time we hang out, she just sits there and listens to me, and it makes me feel good. It's funny. Dude. But it's one of those things where like it's it's one of those things where I want to share information sometimes, but not everybody's necessarily receptive to it. And also, what is it? Like, where's the applicableness of it? Where can I apply it? I struggle with that. So, yeah, I just keep on working. I'm gonna keep, like I said, more so in my personal stance with that. I'm gonna keep on working towards things. I'm gonna kind of keep on like creating my own moments, make sure that I'm giving my showing up for myself and things. And that's the thing too, like to make sure you don't like, leave yourself out on plans. Like that's something I think about, like even in my own personal, like when I want to go and just hang out and go cruise around and just run errands and whatever, just do whatever, mess around. I sometimes get in my head a little bit of like, well, like, what if this happens, and what if this happens, and what if this happens, and then I just left myself out. I just missed out on plans because I had like this whole built up thing. So I got to make sure that I'm consistently doing that. When I say I'm going to do something, to do it. And with podcasting, that's something that's really been big. I've been trying to say like every 3 days or something like that. Like it's like I said, I'm trying to get that schedule going. So every few days, I'm trying my best to like make sure I get up and do the podcast. You know what I'm saying? And then like also every day trying to say like, well, I need to sit down and I need to write. Like I need to do these things. And I put pressure on myself to do it, and that hurts, because then when I put the pressure on and I don't do it, then that's like a dilemma on its own. But like if I count myself out, then I'm never gonna know like what it's like to be, to do it. So if I leave myself out and I miss out on things because of my own accord, I'm never gonna know. And like I said, at the end of the day, you got to show up for yourself a little bit. I'm showing up for myself every day a little bit more, and I'm trying my best. And I think at the end of the day, you have to do that, because people aren't always going to be around for you, and people aren't always going to like I said, want to do things with you, or want to tell you things. And so like you can sit there and get in that feeling of like being left out, or have that fear of missing out. But like, it's all on you. It's all on which you're going to respond to it. And I think a very obvious sentiment, I think, for everybody in every situation with your mental health is how you respond to it. I think like nowadays, like a lot of the times, I think like there's an affirming to mental health, but not a big push to like better yourself, because it's a weird thing to kind of balance between like saying that like it's okay to like not be okay, but it also is not okay to not be okay. as someone who like struggles with that, like I don't want to sit here and feel these feelings anymore. Even though I know I'm gonna feel them like for the rest of my life, I'm gonna have depression for a long time. I even hate saying that because then I'm putting it on myself that I'm gonna have it forever. But I know that overnight I'm not gonna get rid of depression and I'm not gonna get rid of my anxiety. So I have to do things to like push myself out of that. I have to make sure that I clear up these questions. And as I continue to podcast, I'm going to continue asking questions. I want to talk about things that genuinely make me feel a little uncomfortable, even. And make me have to admit things because I don't ever want to be that person that, like, I want people to know that when I say something and when I admit something and I'm saying it, that it's me. That's me saying it. I hate the idea that that I can hide behind something. I don't want to like ever be that like keyboard warrior that's going around like, even though I've been guilty of it, I think at sometimes, but I want to be reliable for my word. I want to be able to like have something that like I could hang on. And so like I'm going to ask these questions and they're going to make me feel uncomfortable and I'm going to come up on a podcast and I'm going to talk about it and I'm going to expose myself and I'm going to try my best. And this is like today's topic, the feeling of being left out and the fear of missing out of it, that's something that I do struggle with and does make me quite uncomfortable. And when I was younger, it was way worse. And I think I sometimes would express those feelings, in that fear. I was more expressive with it and I felt like, I was being like, left out. But then as I realized like being who I am and being my personality is like I don't always want to be included. I do, but like I really don't always want to be included. It was just sometimes like when I was younger, it was the people, and now as I get a little older, I kind of think about the situation more, not the people. Because those people, a lot of people in my life, like they'll be around, like my siblings and my cousins and my dad and stuff like that. And obviously, as time goes on, that there's two things that are inevitable in life, and that's death and time. And that's tough to say, but those are the two. No, those are two inevitable things. But I know that I'm going to be able to create moments with those people. I'm going to be able to do things, and I got a whole balance on those moments. I can't like pick and choose and say like, oh, this one moment was more important because maybe I missed out on all these. Everything's important, and when you miss out, that shouldn't take away from importantness or necessarily boost importantness. If you miss out, you miss out. And you're going to have those doubts in your head and you're going to tell yourself and question and yada yada this, whatever it is. But like at the end of the day, it's going to come and go. That's it's just going to come and go. So, time goes on, I'm just going to continue to try to like hold weight when it happens. When things happen when I get information and people come to me for help and things like that, and like I have those moments where I'm actually included in things, make sure to give that weight to them and appreciate it in the moment. And then when plans fall through or people are doing things without me, don't feel that way because I'm going to create my own moments. So that's the wave I'm on. That's a little bit of the wave I'm on. It's a struggle. Um, because like I said, I don't think it's really ever gonna go away. And some people are better about like being the people that are like, they make the plans, they tell the information, they are like the purveyors of that. And so sometimes seeing those people, I think I even get a little jealous of those people. But like I'm gonna show up for myself. That's what I kind of try to go back to that sentiment of like just showing up for myself. But yeah, I think that's all I kind of have on that a little bit, honestly. Th- I had just something that was kind of on my mind. I have a few other topics, but this one was like really sticking out. It kind of, like I said, it's something that I know that a lot of these things that I'm going to talk about throughout these episodes are going to be closely related to my heart. I'm never going to really try to sway too far off from things that I have a personal feeling about because then it just won't be authentic. I don't ever want to be like a channel or a podcast or anything like that like I'm just like reading off of an article. Like sometimes there will be those moments because like informative stuff is something I enjoy, and when I research, I'm going to read articles and reference them. But I don't ever want to be like directly reading from something. I want to try to be as free form as possible. Keep it fresh. Keep it, keep it on top of the head. Sorry, a little goofy. But yeah, thank you. Thank you for guys for letting me talk about these stuff though. These things, these stuffs, these things. I'm reaching episode 7. I'm keeping the ball going, and I'm trying to figure out the schedule. And I'm gonna continue to throw in like different ideas for episodes. Like I don't always want to be super melancholy, and I don't mind talking about mental health because it's something that's very prevalent to me. But like I don't always want to like be on that kind of wave. So I'm gonna throw in like fun episodes, and do cool things and try to like like flip between like, like if I do 2 a week, 2 episodes a week, like try to do something that's a little more personable and a little bit more about mental health, or a little bit like one of those things that really kind of hit home, like more of those like deeper thought topics, and then things that are semi like that can be semi informative, but mostly more leans on the entertaining kind of fun things, like being able to do like, my favorite movies or my favorite music, or play fun games, or like dive into conspiracies, which I'm trying to work on, like without trying to sound like a nut. But yeah, but for right now, I'm trying to keep it just for per episode, just trying to keep it flowing. So I'm let's see, we're at 40 minutes. Yeah, I'm done. All right, y'all. I appreciate y'all tuning into episode 7. I really, really do. I'm gonna post this up on YouTube. That's where I post all my other episodes of my podcast. My podcast is called the Odd Thoughts Podcast. Like I said, I posted up on YouTube. This is episode 7, so go check out the other 6 episodes. Like I said, there's a good variety. So I know that there'll be something that you'll find enjoyable. And then if you want to follow me on other things, other platforms, I have a Facebook, which is Gunther Getlicker, just my name, capital letters on both my names, the G, both G's. And then I have an Instagram, which is Gunther underscore Getlicker. Both of those G's are lowercase. And then if you want to follow me on Twitter, I have at one Mike GG. That's what I go by, and both of those G's are capital. And then, like I said, I'm trying to spread out, and I'm trying to figure out what else to do, other types of content, and kind of things I can maybe even like put where else I could put my podcast and stuff like that. But anyways, thank y'all for tuning in. This has been the Odd Thoughts pod. Sorry, let me restart that. Thank y'all for tuning in. This has been the Odd Thoughts podcast. I've been your host, Gunther Getlicker, and be excellent to each other.